Hi, I'm Divya. I want to tell you a story about how my living room, well, basically exploding, taught me something huge about how little kids' minds work. And it all kicked off with this one simple, quiet thought.
You know how it is. I had to take a phone call, so I stepped away. It couldn't have been more than 30 minutes. But when I walked back into our living room, I just stopped dead in my tracks. I mean, I could barely even recognize the place.
And right in the middle of it all was my 4-year-old, Mira. She was let's call her the brilliant, tiny engineer of this beautiful disaster. She was just so completely in her own world, just totally absorbed, whispering this whole epic saga to herself. And honestly, to me, it was a masterpiece of imagination. I did a quick mental scan, kind of like a forensic analysis. The sofa cushions, they were now a fort, a structurally questionable fort, but a fort nonetheless. The blocks were this giant, sprawling city, and all the blankets were draped over chairs, creating this whole cave system. Mira was in that state of pure flow. But yeah, to someone else, this looked very, very different. And that someone else was my mother-in-law. She had walked in right behind me, and her judgment was, well, it was swift, and it was certain. It just landed like a lead weight right in my stomach, and instantly I felt all those things at once. Defensive, like a bad mom, and just completely exhausted.
So there it was, my big conflict. On one hand, I saw this incredible, imaginative world that my daughter had just built from scratch. But on the other hand, all I could see were the critical eyes of my mother-in-law and a room that was going to take me at least an hour to fix. I was just completely torn.
And that's when it hit me. I was smack in the middle of this classic parenting paradox, right? All the modern books and blogs, they tell you, encourage open-ended play, let them explore. But then you have that traditional wisdom, the voice of my mother-in-law that's all about order and discipline. And look, both sides have a point, but in that moment, they felt totally, completely incompatible.
So that was the question, the one I was just staring at right there in the middle of the block city and the cushion fort. Is that it? Do you really have to choose creativity or order? Do you have to sacrifice one for the other?
Okay, I needed answers. I couldn't live in that state of constant tension. So I started digging. I really wanted to understand what was actually happening here. Not just, in my living room, but inside my daughter's brain. And what I found, honestly, it changed everything for me. That mess, the thing that looked like pure chaos to an outsider, it wasn't random at all. Turns out, it's some of the most important, most crucial work a young mind can possibly do. So the first thing I came across was this concept called executive function. Sounds complicated, but it's not. Think of it like the CEO of the brain. When Mira was planning her fort, figuring out which cushion would hold up the other one, she was literally doing high-level project management. She was building that ability to plan, to focus, to juggle tasks. And that skill, it's the foundation for pretty much everything later in life. And her block city, that wasn't just a pile of clutter. Nope, it was a hands-on urban planning project. She was getting this incredible lesson in spatial reasoning, how things relate to each other in space. I mean, those are the exact same foundational skills an engineer or an architect uses. And what about using a block as a car or a blanket as a cave? Well, that's called symbolic thinking. And it is a huge, huge developmental leap. It's the brain learning that one thing can represent another. And that, right there, is the foundation for everything from language to reading to abstract math. It's where it all starts. Even the paint smudges, the part I dreaded cleaning up, was a science experiment. Her brain was going, okay, what happens if I mix this blue and this yellow? Will this cushion tower actually stand up if I put one more on top? That's hypothesis, experimentation, observation. It's the scientific method in its purest form, happening right on my sofa. So here's the bottom line, the crucial point of all this. The cognitive processes that build intelligent, creative minds, they require a certain amount of disorder. They require a mess. And if we're constantly interrupting them to tidy up, we're actually interrupting that important work. We're pulling them out of the very state of deep focus that's building their brain. Okay, so I realized the solution wasn't to just eliminate the mess. That would be insane. It's like telling a scientist to clean up their lab right in the middle of a breakthrough experiment. The answer had to be managing it. I needed a framework, a system. The real goal wasn't choosing between creativity or order. It was finding a way to have creativity and order. I needed to find a balance, a rhythm that supported all this amazing brain-building work Mira was doing, but also, kept our family sane and our home from becoming a total disaster zone.
So I found this really practical 5-step framework. First, you designate mess-okay zones and times. Basically, you contain the chaos. Second, you get smart with containers and rotate toys so they don't get overwhelmed. Third, and this one was big for me, you let those really complex projects live for a day or two. It shows you respect their work. Fourth, you make cleanup a team effort, a game, not a punishment. And finally, you learn to tell the difference between a mess from deep engagement and just, a destructive mess. This was the roadmap I'd been looking for.
Okay, so it's one thing to have a plan on paper, right? It's another thing to actually make it happen. So let me tell you exactly how this played out in our house. So we got this colorful rug and put it in one corner of the living room. That became Mira's creation space. Any mess there was totally fine during playtime. We also got a bunch of clear bins with labels, so cleanup wasn't this vague, horrible command anymore. We started doing a 5-minute team cleanup before lunch and dinner. And my favorite new rule, we started taking pictures of her really big projects before they had to be put away. It was our way of saying, we see your work, and it's awesome.
And you know what? This new system gave me the confidence and the actual words to talk to my mother-in-law about it. Instead of getting defensive, I could just calmly point and say, look at how she's planning that whole structure. That's her executive function literally growing right now. The mess isn't the problem, it's the proof that she's learning. And then we'll teach her responsibility when we clean it up together.
And over time, that really did become my mantra. I truly stopped seeing the chaos. Instead, I started seeing the gears turning in her head. The mess wasn't the enemy anymore. It was just the evidence, the byproduct of a brilliant little mind working overtime.
So that's the thought I really want to leave you with. What if we all try to make that shift? What if the next time we walk into a room that looks like a toy bomb went off, we stop seeing a mess that needs to be cleaned, and instead, we see a mind being built?